So in the next two podcasts, I had to split them into two. We are going to talk about naming alkanes, things like this, and figure out how to draw them and name them and be able to tell people what alkanes we're working with. Okay, let's start to name alkanes. We'll go back to our series that we had at the very beginning, and we learned the general formula for this series is CnH2n plus 2, which will give us a compound that has no double bonds or rings. These are the simplest hydrocarbons, and they go on from here. The first one is methane. Meth means one carbon unit. And then the next is ethane. Eth means 2 carbon units. And then propane. And then butane. And then they follow the Greek letters. So this will be pentane. And then hexane. And then it goes on from there with hept, oct, non, and dec. Now, to remember the first four, I usually use the little mnemonic: mother eats peanut butter, which is fun. But I found that when I have peanut butter, people will remember pentane instead of propane. So it has changed into mother eats protein bars periodically. That's one of my students came up with that. So it's actually sort of fun to use. So instead of mother eats peanut butter, if you really want to memorize all of them, mother eats protein bars periodically. And you would think you wouldn't mix up propane and pentane, but it happens all the time. Now, if you have a 1 carbon group unit as a group or hanging off something else, it's not methane anymore. It's a CH3 unit, and it's called a methyl. And so a C2H5 unit, or sometimes you write it CH2CH3, has 2 carbons and then it's attached to something else. That would be ethyl. And so forth. So C3H7, which most people don't write it like that because it doesn't give you any structure, which would be C2H2CH2, and CH3 would be propyl, and of course we would draw that with sticks. So now we're ready to start drawing and naming structures. So let's go back, let's look at the isomers of hexane that we drew in a previous lesson. So we have C6H14, and there were 5 of them. There's one that has 6 carbons in a row, one that has 5 carbons in a row with a group on the second carbon, one with 5 carbons in a row with a 1 carbon unit on the third carbon. Then we go to 4 carbons in a row. We can't put the 1 carbon units at the end because then it would be a 5 carbon unit. So we'd put it here and here. And then one more that has the 2 1 carbon units there. So now we're going to use these to learn how to name alkanes. The first thing you want to do is you want to find the longest chain, because that's going to be your base name. Well, of course, this one is hexane. Sometimes it's called N-hexane for normal, but you don't have to do that. Normal means straight chain. So this one is a 5 carbon unit, but now we have a 5 carbon chain where we have a 1 carbon unit on the second carbon. So we're going to number the chain so the group gets the smallest number possible. This is so you never have any ambiguity. So you would number this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and not backwards. So this name would be 2-methyl pentane. Correspondingly, it doesn't matter which way you number on this way. 1, 2, because it's symmetric. So this would be 3-methyl pentane. Now we go to the 4-carbon units. So these have base names of butanes. Now it doesn't, again, matter which way we number on this one, but you have to specify that you have 2 methyls. So you're going to do it 2 ways, 2, 3. If you have 2 numbers here, you have to put a di. So 2, 3, dimethylbutane. This one we're going to number it this way. So it's 2, 2 dimethylbutane. Remember, if you have 2 numbers, you have to have a di. If you have a di, you have to have 2 numbers. They go together. So the third step will be to name and number all the groups on the chain. And remember to use the prefixes di, tri, tetra, etc. Now there are other groups that we can put on the chain that we're going to use as we do our nomenclature. If you have a bromine on your chain, it's called a bromo group. Or chlorine is a chloro group. Or iodine is an iodo group. So if we have this structure here, we would name this, I'm going to number it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 bromo, 4 methyl pentane. This structure also illustrates the need to keep alphabetizing in perspective. We're going to number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because bromine comes before methyl in the alphabet. So the correct name would be 2-bromo 4-methyl pentane. Now if you have the structure in a ring like this, it no longer follows CnH2n plus 2 because the ring takes up 2 H's, but it is an alkane because it has no double bonds. This would be cyclohexane. Just like this would be cyclobutane. And we end up using cyclohexane so much that sometimes if you even just see hexane, your brain will substitute a cyclo in there. So be careful. You'll either throw in a cyclo or take out a cyclo even though it's there. So now if we're going to name structures that have our cycloalkanes, if I put this here, we'll do methyl cyclohexane. There's no need for a number because there's only one way to draw that. Now, once you put more than one thing on there, then it's relative numbering. This isn't given the one spot or this isn't given the one spot. It's the relationship between the two. So this would be 1, 3 dimethyl cyclohexane.